Hello and welcome to the only podcast that has started baking bread with our children, or as we call them now, our General Rykin. I'm Luke.
I'm Max.
I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought.
All right. Hello and welcome back to a special St. Patrick's Day episode of Force for Thought, where we are talking about all things luck in Star Wars, starting with our favorite scenes in which characters get lucky, if you know what I mean, but that was really just the one in Andor, so I don't know if we have too much more to discuss.
Yeah, also, guys, I mean, St. Patrick's Day, I want to say a specific happy St. Patrick's Day to our Irish hosts, the two of you.
That's me and Max,
Newfound
yes.
Irish ancestry.
A tip of the hat to you, Matthew. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Anyway, go on with your sex jokes.
It was just the one sex joke, but that was about it.
Okay.
We'll probably get another one in season 2.
And
We
then
can
moving
only
on,
hope.
I wanted to see who you guys thought was the luckiest character in Star Wars
All time,
all time.
Jar Jar. Although,
I mean,
that's interesting.
no, that's
Jar
pretty
Jar
good.
Is like who I kept coming to when I was making my list for this episode for tonight's discussion, and because every single action sequence with him, he's just doing silly antics and getting horribly lucky results out of it. As a person, he's not that lucky. I mean, he did sort of damn the galaxy to the Galactic Empire by voting emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor, and then he got kind of cast out and forgotten immediately after.
He gets a bad rap for that, though, and that always kind of upset me when they did that little flashback moment or whatever in the Aftermath book when they did a little shot of Jar Jar post Return of the Jedi, and he was like a town jester, and he was like panhandling for money or whatever, and he was a joke now, and people didn't even realize who he was, and he had just fallen so far from grace. And that is not all on Jar Jar. I mean, there was a lot of other people that supported it as well, but whatever.
True.
I think they were being a little harsh just because people didn't like Jar Jar in the prequels. But it still stands that there were a lot of unfortunate things that happened to him. He was, I will say, instrumental in Palpatine's rise, but he's not solely to blame. I thought you were gonna say Han Solo, though, and I was gonna get ready to throw down in case somebody thought that, but I was gonna say Finn.
Han Solo is the most unlucky person. I feel like he he falls into the most complicated missions of all time that he does not need to be a part of. Then he falls in love with the most complicated family of all time. Then he has the most complicated child of all time. That's I'm gonna say, which is not on this list. I want to hear your Max. I want to hear your reasoning for Poe. Sorry,
for Finn. Well, he just kind of
Finn. Sorry,
his whole every single story that he's a part of. I mean, he makes the right call. He tries to desert, and then luckily he just kind of comes across Poe, and he's like, "Hey, we can escape together." And then he crash lands. Then he just kind of comes across Rey, and he's like, "Hey, I can escape with you." And then they leave, and then he just kind of comes across Han, and it's just one thing after another. And then even in The Last Jedi, he kind of he's about to leave, and then he comes across Rose, and then they decide to go on their mission together, and then that thing was a failure, but it kind of worked because they happened to run into DJ. Finn's entire story arc in every single movie is he just happens to be running into the right people at the right time. And he does have at least a positive outcome where, he leaves the stormtrooper life for what ended up being a better galaxy post Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is very true, and I agree wholeheartedly. I did not when you first said that, but you pulled me aboard. I also think it's kind of a blanket answer, but anyone that survives in the Resistance between episode 8 and 9, the vast majority gets wiped out. If you are a minor character, Finn's obviously not minor, but anyone that still is a Resistance member come day after The Last Jedi, and they're like, yeah, I was here last week too. You are a lucky son of a bitch.
That is interesting.
You're still sticking around?
Especially because that's what always sickens me when I read books and stuff, and Jedi do stuff in space with other people piloting. How can you possibly trust your life to this? Those people were just slaughtered. Like all those people aboard the resistance transports, like they didn't have any chance to fight back or anything. They were following Leia's orders, then Holdo's orders, and then Poe's orders, and then Holdo's orders again, and they were just, hoping for the best, and then they just get unceremoniously killed by the hundreds. There was a ton of people there.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. How much of it though is on them for being a part of the resistance?
Oh, we're gonna go First Order sympathizer route now.
Well, no, I mean it's just like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, when you sign up for a rebellion, there's a certain amount of risk you take on up front, and so it's not like they're killed and it's like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
it's just a bummer when there's nothing you could have done differently.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm not trying to play like what if, because we can always find luckier situations, but the luckiest person in Star Wars is whoever else was from Alderaan that happened to be off planet because they had to run and get groceries real quick, and then they came back and they were like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, then they
or
just get
unluckiest
the rest of their lives with
I don't know
with their families and
guilt.
friends all being slaughtered.
Yeah, bad.
Exactly.
Maybe unluckiest. I think the luckiest person in all of Star Wars, and like this is like semi joke, but also not, is just Mace Windu.
Is
Not
the
for the fact of,
luckiest?
yes, not for the fact of any character things in the story, but from a bird's eye view perspective. If Sam Jackson didn't get cast as Mace Windu and didn't insist on a purple lightsaber, I don't think we would have any of the content or most of the backstory that we have of him now. I think it's just because he is perchance played by Sam Jackson, who, put up a fit to have his own lightsaber, that we get so much content still, and that he is more of a legacy character. That could have been, I don't know, if Mace Windu had a blue lightsaber, half as cool.
That's true.
I think he is the luckiest character for that reason alone, because I don't think that character would really exist to this standard that we now hold him to, even though on this podcast we genuinely dislike the character of Mace Windu, but like the actor Sam Jackson.
That brings up a fun semantic understanding of lucky, where it's like lucky in a meta out of universe sense, where like George Lucas or Sam Jackson or whoever decided to give him a purple lightsaber, he got a purple lightsaber and now he's cooler because of it. But also in universe, you go to Ilum and then the Force kind of gives you a crystal, or you find your own crystal, and so the Force does it, which we're gonna have to be careful when all night talking about like what's luck and what's the Force, but I feel like there's no way you can't get a purple kyber crystal and not consider yourself lucky. Otherwise, you're just considering yourself better than everyone. I mean,
yeah,
that's got to be the luckiest thing that could happen to you as a Jedi. I would prefer yellow personally, but
yeah,
it's like pulling an ultra rare. What are the odds of getting a black crystal when you go to Galaxy's Edge?
I don't know, but Max and I are going to find out this summer.
It's something crazy though. But yeah, and I agree. This was a surprisingly hard list to come up with, because there were a lot of times where I was like, well, no, they actually kind of planned that all out ahead. Or I was like rationalizing it by being like, that was really just the will of the Force. Like that's not like sheer luck that happened, or another category that I came up with, and I have a feeling we'll touch on all three of these, is it's just not lucky one way or another, because it actually made no impact. And I'll explain that more in a minute when we get there, if it comes up. But I want to get through some of these list items that we have of the most lucky moments in Star Wars. I tried to order them real quickly in chronological order. So we're going to start with the Phantom Menace, starting with every action sequence with Jar Jar.
Yep.
I know we touched upon this, but
yeah.
It's true. I mean, like Qui-Gon Jinn just perchance saves him. Obi-Wan, I feel like, saves him multiple times. He also, he falls at the correct moments. Any sort of thing. He is. I mean, I know what they're doing with that character, right? It's like almost like a '90s comedy where it's just like Mr. Magoo, where like he's just perchance walking through gunfire, not getting hit, unlike Sharut. But I feel like that's just like the shtick for the time that they're playing into consistently, and it's like it just does make him also the luckiest in those action sequences, because it's like he's so out of his element he should not survive whatsoever, and yet he does.
he's not just not getting hit. He's like dropping boombas into battle droids, taking out tanks, accidentally releasing all the big boomers, and then those go rolling into a dozen tanks. He gets tangled up on that droidica, I think, and he like dives, and then its blaster goes off on the droid that was about to get him, and then he dives the other way, and it happens again. It's all really funny when you watching Jar Jar, which I guess, I mean, those particular scenes, it's just Jar Jar, so it's not like a deep cut. But even when it's like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, you're obviously watching them, but on your, 900th rewatch, you can watch Jar Jar in the background, and it's funny and incredibly lucky the situations he's in.
Yeah. I'm pretty proud of myself about this Mr. Magoo reference, I feel like. I feel like that is spot on. And once again, you know what? I always say I'm not the smartest person on this podcast. It might be changing.
Probably. I don't even know who that is, so.
Mr. Magoo, there's Leslie Nielsen, is just he's the blind guy who just consistently gets into
Is this a movie?
problems. It is, yeah.
What movie?
Mr. Magoo.
Oh, that's the name of the movie. Okay. No, I never heard of the guy, the actor, or the movie.
Are you thinking of
Is the
Dr.
guy
I'll send you
Evil
some good clips.
with Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, the Eddie Murphy version. I'm glad you.
Yeah.
Or the Robert Downey Jr. version. There's so many other versions now, I guess.
That's interesting.
Going back
who's
to Jar
listening
Jar.
to this, I'm assuming is already intimately familiar with the fan theory of Jar Jar being a Sith Lord. But Jar Jar being this incredibly lucky in all of those action sequences is like one of the main arguments for why it must be true, because it can't surely be luck every single time.
Yeah.
He was just kissed by the luck of the Irish. There's also the moment where he almost gets his hand caught in a starting pod race engine, and Padme comes and takes it out like 1 second in time. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my god, Jar Jar, this was almost an R-rated movie.
She was
That's
walking
true.
over so slowly. Anakin was waiting. He would not have turned it on. He's looking right at him.
No, his tongue was numb. He couldn't even call for help.
That's true.
All right, sticking with Phantom Menace. The next thing I had was Anakin, basically his whole third act, accidentally flying to the Trade Confederation ship, not getting blown up, randomly spinning away from enemy fire, crashing into the main hangar of the Trade Federation control ship, and blowing it up.
That's pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's pretty lucky. Yeah, left and right. But again, imagine, man, also just unlucky for anybody else at the same time. Because if any of that would have went wrong, there's no Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And also
right,
death of. Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, I
I'm-
guess
I'm
it's
sure
true.
that's how the galaxy would have looked at it at the time. If that 10-year-old boy died while under the supervision of the Jedi, just leaving home and saying goodbye to his mother, they're like, you know what? He was probably going to grow up to be a dick anyway. It's fine.
Confirmed.
A lot of that may have been skill or R2's help or force intuition or intervention. But crash landing into the control ship is pretty
Yeah.
inexcusably luck in my mind. I don't
I
think you
agree.
can spin that any other way.
Yeah, that is the one moment at least.
And the way he was selling everything too, like as he's spinning, he's like, "Whoa!" It's like, all right, he doesn't have any sort of composure, you know. Like if he
No.
was like purposefully doing it, I'd be like, okay, like we know he's a prodigy and everything like that, but no, it's a lot of luck. Moving to, I believe this is Attack of the Clones. Luke, you put this one, Obi-Wan catching Anakin's lightsaber. That's when they're chasing Zam.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that is incredibly lucky.
That's a lucky move. It's one thing to lose your like imagine losing your lightsaber driving down or an object driving down I-70, and then there's also 1,000 I-70s intersecting every direction underneath you. And the one guy driving on one of those lanes finds the thing you dropped. That's crazy.
And it's relatively small in the grand scheme of like if you're on a highway. It's like if you're dropping anything, it's like if I dropped my water bottle out of it, it's like where the hell was it on this street? You're gonna find it
Yeah.
eventually, but it's like, well, imagine if that street was made of air.
I mean, by the
And-
time he catches that thing,
I retract my statement. I am not the smartest person on this podcast.
when he catches it, that thing is moving. I mean, he has a windshield in front of him. If he was just flying like a foot higher off the air, that thing would have just like smashed through his windshield, sending shards of shrapnel into his face and everything. But what always gives me the most anxiety about that is that he catches it so nonchalantly, and then he just like gently places it on the seat next to him. I'm like, man, that is gonna
Yes.
fly away the first time you take a quick turn. Like,
Yeah, that's
sit
why we
on it
have
or
glove
something.
compartments.
Yes. Today was a beautiful day in Cleveland, Ohio, and I opened my windows up and instantly was nervous that like papers were gonna fly out of my car. I don't know where the papers are at. I just like if there's papers in here, they're going to fly out. No, I can't imagine that with a lightsaber. A dangerous weapon. Be like that's like just a full out gun in your car. Don't
Yeah,
care. It's gonna
there's
fly out.
also that angle where it's like your Padawan's lightsaber, where like he has a responsibility to keep it with him. You know, this weapon is your life. It's important to you. Yada yada yada. But you also can't let that just out into the streets on Coruscant. Like you have a responsibility to the citizens of Coruscant not to release such a dangerous weapon out there.
Do you think his saber has like the VIN number or whatever scratched off? The VIN number. It's not a car. The the number scratched off, so it can't be tracked.
It's just a bummer that they make them all so personalized so you can recognize them.
That's what.
even if the force helps him, he has force catch abilities, which I'm sure he does. I'm sure he used the force to help wrangle it in. Say that increases your radius 1,000 times. Like this is such a small object and you're driving so fast and it's such a cluttered area. That is a lucky scene.
Yeah.
Yes, incredibly.
I agree. Moving on, Luke, you might have to provide some more context to this one. You added this one as well, but I do kind of remember it. Ezra and Zeb finding a Melu run on a planet that has no Melu runs.
Yes. So this is from Rebels. Ezra and Zeb were getting into it, and Hera sent them on a wild Melu run chase to go find a Melu run. And Kanan's like, there are no Melu runs on this planet. And she's like, I know. They're going to just have to work together and become friends. And then they find one. Son of a guns. That's lucky.
That is indeed lucky.
That's funny. And then moving on to what I think is the second luckiest movie in all of Star Wars, A New Hope. I have a couple here. Starting with R2 and 3PO being picked up by the same Jawas in A New Hope. I mean, that seems pretty fortuitous.
I don't know enough about Jawa culture and society. How many sandcrawlers do they have? We see, I don't know, a dozen in that one scene where Anakin's looking for his mom. He goes to like a trailer park full of them. But
I don't
how
think there
many
was
do
a
you think
dozen.
are
I
out
think
there?
We see maybe 2.
Oh, I'm pulling it up. No, I don't know either. You can keep talking about it though.
But that said, I don't know. I don't think it's that many. But still, the idea that they were both picked up by the same Jawas because they went in opposite directions, right? Famously,
Yeah.
we know that much. And they were picked up. I mean, it couldn't have been the same Jawas, but part of the same clan. I don't know much about their culture, but obviously they fed into the same sandcrawler.
I hate this. Is the quickest way just to launch Disney Plus and pull up this scene?
Yes,
what
it
I'm
is.
currently doing.
Unfortunately, because like again, I would say not that we're experts, but like if a lot of the things that I look up, I'm just like, let me refer back to my own podcast to see what Luke and Max said about it. That or Disney Plus has the actual.
That went pretty quick. There are 2. All right, that speaks to the point I was trying to make much better. It seems like these are pretty rare. I don't think it's that lucky that the same one picked up both of them. They're also probably patrolling like square miles worth of space, and R2 and 3PO moves well under the average speed of a person walking, and R2 moves about that speed. So they get like maybe a mile away from each other and then get picked up by the same sandcrawler.
No, it's like a
That
completely
seems-
different time of day.
Oh, that's true. They get C-3PO right
That is
away,
tough.
and then R2 a little bit later. But still, they're not. He's not going far. He didn't even make it to the civilization or the settlement or whatever he thought he was gonna find.
It's got to be like a jail, right? There's a bunch of different cop cars out there, and then they all go to the same jail, right? If you're in the same city, so they're all patrolling that area, and then I assume they all get together. That is my theory. They all go in the same place. Because what are you gonna have multiple? You have to know your inventory. I feel like of droids too if you're selling.
All right. Well, we can put an asterisk next to that one. Maybe that one's not all luck, but
You don't want to go into Jawa inventory. That's not something you want to discuss.
Moving on to one that is absolutely not luck, that I don't have on my list, but I do want to talk about it because we've mentioned it previously on the podcast, was R5 blowing his motivator, causing Uncle Owen to pick R2 instead. That was not luck. That was a self-sacrifice made by R5 that we have learned in the short story from a certain point of view. So
Yep.
anyone who thinks that that was a lucky moment can get that thought out of their head right now.
Bug off.
But then number 6, so now we're on the Death Star. The lack of the decision on the Stormtroopers' part to pursue Leia and the gang into the garbage chute. I'm not saying they should have jumped in, but like maybe hang outside the door in case they get out.
Yeah, that's someone who doesn't care about their job.
Definitely
I mean,
don't.
That's
jump
someone
in.
who's in it for a
went.
paycheck.
Did they know
Yeah.
where they went? How clear is the?
They
How
watched
clear
them
is the-
jump in.
Here's
But
a
it's like you look in and it's like, oh, kind of smells bad, but do we know where that is? Is it just the garbage
Here's
compactor
a-
on the level below them? Aren't there like probably hundreds or thousands of garbage compactors? Do you know which one that leads to?
Do you think, I mean, we don't get
Here's-
an aerial shot. Do you think they can just stick their heads in and look down? Or do you think it's like a labyrinth of a chute and they went all over the place?
I think it's a windy thing. 'Cause
That's how
think
I
if you-
imagine it too, because it seems like there's a bit of time between jumping in and landing in the garbage, right? I
Yeah.
can't picture the exact.
Also,
Leia
timing.
knew that it was a garbage chute.
Did she?
Yeah, she said, into the garbage chute, flyboy.
Yeah.
Look,
Yep,
so-
you're right.
2 things, right? Or maybe 3. Riddle me this, I guess. So 1, Leia knows it's the garbage chute. And I'm going to suggest that presumably after she eats a meal, she knows that that's where the garbage goes. That's the only way I assume that she would understand that. Or it reeks, I guess. 2,
Or it's labeled.
why would she need to blast a hole in the vent if presumably it is a garbage chute? Would it not just open?
That's what I was thinking, because I forgot it was a garbage chute. I thought it was just a vent for the garbage room for
Yes.
for safety purposes. But surely you would vent that to somewhere. Although
Not a
venting it
hallway.
to the detention center is a vicious move. That's
Okay,
hilarious,
so-
actually.
Quick question: is Galen Urso just a terrible designer?
No, he's a vicious designer. He's sitting there like, you know what would make prison even worse?
It's also a practical decision because it's like, if you have to vent it somewhere, you can't vent it outside. You're in space. They're like, we have to vent it to somewhere on the station. They're like, all right, well, make the prisoners breathe it in.
Imagine that
means
meeting.
all the trash compactors are venting to the detention center, and so the stormtroopers don't know which trash compactor they went into.
You think there's a
I
lot
think-
of trash compactors?
Well, there's got to be more than one, right?
How often
big
do the
Death
trash
Star.
I don't
compactors
know.
compact? And did they compact by the stormtroopers? Is that how they were trying to kill them?
No, I think it was just time to compact.
I think
It
so
wasn't that
too.
Full.
It wasn't.
I have a lot of questions now, I guess too. Mainly though, I think it's like when you when you put a doorknob on and you feel like it's complete, but then you realize that the hinge inside the actual locking mechanism is backwards, so now it won't shut
Yes.
properly.
Yes, I know
So-
exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you. I did that today after work. And I feel like it's the same thing with Galen Urso building the Death Star and then realizing the center of it is the garbage chute, and now he has to build the entire thing around a garbage compactor, and so everything is venting. They're like, well, we have a Death Star. The downside is it smells like shit every single time, no matter where you go. That's why the
I can't-
Emperor's not there in the first one. He's like, I don't know.
Every time you
second one.
mention- Every time you mention him, I can only hear that intro joke I said a couple weeks back, the Galen Herso.
Yeah,
that
pretty
was
good.
so funny. Ruined that character forever now.
I mean, when the characters were about to get out of the trash compactor, the door was right there. You think there was any conversation like open it slowly in case there's people out there? Like, if I was in there, I would be fully expecting an army of stormtroopers on the other side of that door.
No, that's just the sanitation engineers at that point, and I bet there was some, kind of business decisions like inner office drama where the stormtroopers tried to step in on sanitation's quarters, and they said, "No, this is where we work. You stay out."
And that sanitation officer was Finn's grandfather, and Finn was following the family business years later.
So just to confirm, we can talk about trash compactors all day, but not Jawa inventory. Just to just to cross that, just to check that box.
Jawa inventory is pretty clear. I got nothing else to speculate on that with.
I have no questions there. And then after the trash compactor scene, there's that famous behind the scenes moment where Mark Hamill was like, "Oh, shouldn't my hair be all schmutzy from the trash and stuff, and clean and dry now?" And Harrison Ford said, "Hey kid, it ain't that kind of movie." And everyone always brings that up and says it whenever we bring up one of these questions that I like to think about endlessly. And I object. Harrison Ford has no idea. It is absolutely that kind of movie. That's what makes Star Wars so fun. All these intricacies.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't know it at the time. Like he thought this was going to be a nothing movie, and then obviously it did turn into that kind of movie. So
Harrison Ford has viewed this as a nothing movie since 1975, and he will never change his mind. He does not like Star Wars, and he never has.
no, he just had to do one Marvel movie first to get it out of his system, and now he's going to return back and realize all the fun that he has missed with this franchise.
Yeah, he's probably going to Japan next month.
Another one I was debating putting on, but I decided not to because I was like, I think this is more of the will of the Force, was Luke and gang watching Obi-Wan die. Now, I know it sounds weird to say that they were lucky to watch him die, but A, he didn't really die. All right, he became one with the Force. But also, what if they didn't see that? Like, what if they just got back to the Falcon and they were like, Ben's not here yet. Do we wait for him?
You're right. I was not on board until you bring up that point. That would have been such a traumatizing decision to make. You can't wait for him. You gotta go.
You gotta go.
Wow, thank God they saw that.
They didn't have a way of communicating with him, so they also wouldn't have even known if he had finished turning off the tractor beam, too.
Luke would have hated Han forever if he left. Even if he did find it confirmed some other time in the future that Ben died before they left, like that would have permanently altered their relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you thought it was lucky. Like I said, I kind of carved this out as the will of the Force because I've heard somebody talk about like dissecting that scene and how Obi-Wan was so happy that like his last vision, like he was like redeeming himself against his former Padawan, and the last thing that he saw was Luke and Leia reunited again for the first time after 19 years or however old they were. And he knew that like everything was going to be okay. And yeah, every time I think of that, I always get goosebumps a little bit. So I'm like, no, that wasn't luck. That's will of the Force right there.
I also think it's very much Obi-Wan controlling that situation. Obviously, he's on a mission, and I think that we don't really know what his mission is most of the time. Like he goes, obviously turns on the tractor beam. We know that, but I think he is on his own rogue mission to meet Vader. I think that is part of the plan too, is to also push Luke if he's not there already, to show obviously that he needs to join the rebellion, for good or whatever. I think too. So I think that is very much Obi-Wan is doing, and the fact that actually seeing him getting struck down is part of the plan.
Yeah, just the thought of what they would have talked about and decided to do had they not seen that is really making me laugh. Practically, I think that if Ben did have to confront Vader somewhere else and like he didn't have a way of communicating with Luke and Luke wasn't going to watch him die, I think he would have just mopped the floor with Vader and gotten out of there. I don't think he would have lost.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. I like that though. I think I'll hold on to that.
We'll try it again next time.
Maybe not mopped the floor, but I think he would have ran away and not died there.
Well, speaking of mopping up Vader, the next one I had was Han Solo's timing to take out Vader during the trench run.
Yes.
I'm glad you included one of these because that's another category that I'm surprised you didn't include in what is not luck. That's just movies gonna movie. Like, yeah, things happen at the last second for dramatic effect.
Yeah,
you can't start including all those.
A lot of those are luck. No, some of those can be categorized differently, such as, like I said, will of the Force, like a plan if that was what they wanted to do from the beginning. But it wasn't. Han Solo just had a change of heart, and he was like, all right, I'll go help out. And he just happened to get there the second before Darth Vader was about to blow Luke out of the sky.
Can you imagine like Han Solo like later, but wait, who did I shoot down? Like he has no idea that's like, does he know it's Vader? Like, right? Like,
no, there's no way you would know.
Isn't that crazy to think about? Like,
it's crazy thinking about how he shot the wing and didn't go for the kill.
Yes, exactly.
Would they not? You don't think Darth Vader's TIE Advance was known to the rebels?
I don't think
Han
so.
wasn't a rebel at the time. I mean, I guess maybe he just started that second. But even if
Yeah.
it was known to the rebels, it wasn't known to Han and Chewie.
I mean, Luke saw it though, right? Wouldn't Luke know that that was Darth Vader's tie?
Oh, you mean after the fact? Do they know that that was Vader?
Yeah. At any point
Uh,
after the trench run, do you think Han Solo was like, "Hey, I killed Darth Vader"? And how long was it until he realized that Darth Vader was still alive? And he was like, "Damn it!"
I don't think he ever thought that he killed that person. He saw them. They just crashed into each other and then they flew out into open space. I think that I wouldn't be fooled by that person being alive. But now I can't think of if they knew that was Vader or not. I don't see why they would have. There's
Right?
100 ties out there. And admittedly, as much as I love making a big fuss over minute differences in ships and lightsabers and stuff, the tie advance is not that special looking.
Especially when you're flying that fast, I assume. And also when you're on a very strict mission, I don't think you're like looking in your rear view mirror being like, that's cool. It's not like you...
That's true too.
All right. Well, moving on to episode 5. I had Chewie coming across 3PO in the trash on Bespin.
Yeah, that's lucky.
Yeah.
Who just goes through the trash?
What was he doing? He was helping the Ugnaughts find parts for the Falcon, wasn't he? I mean, he wasn't looking for
can't picture
3PO,
it
I don't think. Because even when he did find him, there was like a little like a fight over him. Like the Ugnaughts didn't even want to give it to him.
He's literally
Yeah.
like Frank. He's like, what are you doing? Just farting around. Like just per chance, like stumbled into good luck again. Absolutely
We're gonna
true.
sound so stupid when I rewatch Empire Strikes Back next and see why he was looking through the trash or if he was looking for 3PO. But like even like Leia said that 3PO's been gone far too long for him to have gotten lost. Like it's not like Chewbacca just gets up out of his chair like, all right, I'll check the trash. Like,
He wants to
I
do
don't
something
know.
else.
I think that's luck. That's a good one.
All right, good. And then Return of the Jedi. Han Solo bonking Boba Fett into the Sarlacc pit.
The
Dumb
biggest.
luck. That's the category
Yes.
of dumb luck.
Dumb.
Yes, this
It
might
is
be
indeed.
the actual luckiest moment in all of Star Wars, right?
Yep.
Again,
Absolutely.
we can come back to it at the end of our episode here tonight, but I don't see anything else taking this from the number one.
I think there's a couple.
Max,
but
you
yeah,
might?
I will.
All right.
We'll come back to it.
At
I
least
think
so
this one's
far. This
definitely
is
in
now
the
top of
running.
the list.
I don't really have a whole lot more to say about that one.
No.
It's
I
very-
mean, it is
it's
the
obviously
most.
lucky in the moment. I mean, they make a big thing about it.
Yeah. And
Han
it's.
Solo's not even force sensitive. Boba's not particularly relevant to or important for the force to be like, we got to remove this guy from the chessboard. Like, this is
Yep.
just luck. No force intervention.
The unlucky part, though, or maybe the luckiest part of that, is it gives Robert Rodriguez gold to work with. And then he just kind of turns it into copper.
I won't even fight back. That was a good
I
analogy.
didn't think too much about
Thank
Book of
you.
Boba Fett. I'm sure I could have come up with something from the show. But sticking
No,
with
that show's
Return of the
airtight.
Jedi, Lando losing his radar dish, and then he says, "Whoa, that was too close." Again, I think any time that you acknowledge that something was lucky in the Star Wars universe, it needs to make the list.
Lucky.
But that was very close for comfort. I mean, he could have been splattered across the guts of the Death Star in that moment.
That's true.
Yeah. Like imagine driving at high speeds and you hit your side view mirror on something. Like that is a car accident. That
It's
is
like you-
way too close. That's luck. That's another good example. I like this one.
And I'm sure this answer is somewhere out there. What is that dish? What does that do?
Hey, radar things.
You think it's radar?
Yeah, radar things. It's gotta
So,
be radar.
I mean, you
What
think
else
that
is a
made a
dish?
big impact? I mean, what happened after that? I guess
Like
they
a
blew it up and it
submarine,
flew
Mr.
away.
Wayne.
You think that, or they have like direct TV?
Part of
It's
the,
not that.
the on-flight
They're like, "Oh,
entertainment
no."
system.
Red zone's gone.
I am changing. I'm changing my answer here though to be not luck. The chasm was shortening, was getting smaller. That's how big the Falcon was. And that's how big he had to fly through. That's a skill maneuver to fit.
Did he know it was going to get that big? I mean, is it lucky that he was able to fit in there?
Yes, that's That could be lucky that
All
they
right.
go into the Death Star and they're like, oh, this is gonna get real tight real fast, and everyone's in single pilot ships, and then the fucking Millennium Falcon is like 6 times all their sizes, and it's also barely fitting in all these spots.
Especially considering on the previous Death Star, that hole was only approximately the size of a womp rat.
That is not that hole.
How is that not that hole? This is a different hole?
Yeah, it was halfway under construction.
Yeah, it's true. Do you think, in my head canon, in Bad Batch, when Tech cuts the rope, the just per chance going on, there is a trampoline circus going on below him, so he did survive, and now he's
Yeah.
living as a galactic carny. I think that'd be pretty lucky.
That would be lucky.
All right, that's it.
I'll keep that in mind when I write my next
No one,
fanfic. I like that
no one even questions what a trampoline circus is. That's just 2 words I just put together.
No, it's all there.
I think I got it.
The imagery goes
All right,
together.
Okay, good.
Number 11. Every time Mando gets shot in his armor. I didn't want to put this
Yes.
one on just because this has been memed to death online. Like I always see people talk about it, but yeah, it's true. You know, he gets shot a
So
million
true.
times, and every single one is right in the Beskar, which makes me wonder if maybe
Jesus.
Beskar is also like a magnet to energy, and that's why he always gets hit in it. You know, kind of like lightsabers, like I talked about on the previous episode.
Get a different armor then. Jesus. If you're a bounty hunter, can you imagine? It's not like you're wearing it for fun. Like
I mean,
you're wearing
it's
it
not
to
attracting
protect
it from a
it.
mile away. You know, it's just like a
Yeah.
little last minute adjustment.
That's-
Which, if you're gonna get hit anywhere, you want it to be in the armor.
I'm not one of those guys who, when I watch something, I'm like, oh, there's only 6 shots in the revolver, and this person's been shooting, a million different times. I'm just like, it's a movie, it's suspension of disbelief. It's what do you like again? What are you gonna watch someone to reload a gun like every 2 seconds? That's not fun. It's gonna get boring.
John
So I'm
Wick
not
made
one of
that
those.
cool.
Yes, yeah, that's true. They did. But I'm not one of those guys when I watch that. But with that being said, Mando is one of those shows where it does become overtly ridiculous in some
Yeah.
fights.
It's not like it just sometimes hits him and it was luckily in the shoulder. It's like
Yep.
pinging like a piano off of him. And it's
Yeah.
like
They draw
he's shot
attention.
a dozen times in this gunfight.
Yep. They draw attention to it, and it's very obvious, and it gets a little bananas, I think, sometimes.
All right, number 12. Moving on to what I think is the luckiest movie in all of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Starting with
Oh,
BB-8
yeah.
being stranded within walking distance of Rey, / Rey finding BB-8, / Lor Santeca being on Jakku at all.
I think there's not it's not a coincidence that A New Hope, Phantom Menace, and Force Awakens are all the luckiest movies, right? And it's because you have to have all these coincidences and luck happen in order for the story to advance. I think all these movies are the first one in every single trilogy, and I think that is wise. All these characters from all these different places around the galaxy have to just coincide and meet, right? So I think every first movie of a trilogy will be the luckiest, as we've just stated, basically. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm trying to think because The Force Awakens and A New Hope are basically the same movie in a lot of ways, and so like, why is it so lucky that BB-8 crashed on Jakku and found Rey, and not like the same with R2 and Luke? But R2 was on a mission to go to Luke with Leia, and then without Leia, and so like that was always by design. The impetus is really Lor Santeca just being on Jakku is what brought Kylo Ren and Poe Dameron and BB-8. So if they can in the future, which maybe they will soon, with comics or books, somehow explain why Lor Santeca was on Jakku, because we know nothing, right? But there's a story there, and if they can tie that to Rey, even tangentially, I'll let it slide. So much so that I'm okay shelving this one for now because I am confident that it will be addressed.
do you think
I
it's
mean-
like a Woody Allen situation where like he's just kind of disgraced in his country, so he has to go make films in a different country now and only makes French films?
Is that
Rome
what happened to Woody
Polanski.
Allen?
Making French films.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, he's still real big in Europe,
I mean,
not so much in the U.S.
the story is not a stretch. because it's not, like you said, it's not a coincidence that R2 landed on Tatooine. Like, the answer is Lor San Tekka knew Luke. Make it, well, I don't know. Luke can't have known about Rey, I guess. I don't know. Lor San Tekka somehow had to have known about Rey, and he was there to keep an eye on her, like Obi-Wan was over Luke.
Ooh,
It's
But
the
don't
same
make
thing
it
as
the
A New
exact
Hope,
same
so
thing.
that's what it is.
That is the same as New Hope. We can make it a little different somehow.
Why draw
Maybe
the
Lor-
line there?
Maybe Lor San Tekka knew Rey's parents, and and they had a history on Jakku, and they were business partners together or something. I don't know, something. Not just I'm protecting this girl from the Sith.
Yeah, in my mind, I never thought he was just there protecting anybody. I thought he was there on a like part of a mission, and that was just their
Yes,
perchance their meetup point. I don't know if he
yes, but
was. I know
that
we're talking.
perchance is too perchancey for me
It is
currently with our
perchancey.
current understanding of the canon, and
Yeah.
I'm confident that that'll change sooner than later.
I hope so. I mean, they're starting to do more sequel trilogy stuff. The Legacy of Vader
Yeah.
is coming out right now in comics, so hopefully they get more, they receive more liberty to start telling stories in this era. But sticking with The Force Awakens, the most egregious one, and my least favorite thing about the sequels of all time, Maz randomly having Luke's lightsaber.
It's not bad. It's just not explained. If it
Yeah.
was explained in any of the other movies, it'd be perfect. But since it's just not explained, I 1000% agree that it doesn't. It is
There
luckiest.
was no knowledge of Han of like, oh, Maz has this lightsaber. She has Luke's
Mhm.
lightsaber. I'm sure Rey's gonna need that. We should go get there. Like, it's still random that he took her there, even if
That's
we do
true,
find
yeah.
out what the story is for why she has
Yeah.
it, which is egregious that we haven't yet. I thought for sure we were gonna get it that film, and then I was like, oh, I guess that's gonna be in the next movie. And then by the third one, I was like, I really hope it's in here, and we still don't know how she got it, even though she specifically said a good story for another time. What the fuck was that? That was J.J. Abrams giving
Yeah.
us the finger, saying, I don't know how to write this off. This is what you people want, and I have to put it on screen somehow.
Yeah.
It pisses
Yeah,
me
not
off.
to
But it
sound
still
like a
gives me
broken record.
goosebumps when you
There
hear
will
the
be a
whispers.
story that explains this in the future, and I'm okay with reserving judgment until I see that. I will, to be fair, I have now been saying this for 10 years since this movie came out, and there should be a lifetime on how long I can say that for. It's more than
You
10
are-
years, so
You are
we'll
the ultimate
see.
Star Wars fan, Luke, for being like, this is what Star Wars does to me. It gives me so many questions that it's not going to answer, and it might inadvertently answer it in 10 years when Disney buys it. Like, imagine, again, think about way back when the sequels, the prequels were coming out, and all of a sudden, I feel like, again, we've now learned to love the prequels because of the gaps filled in with Clone Wars and so on. And it's just
And
so
because of Kit
funny.
Fisto.
Exactly. But it's just so funny that it's like, yes, this is just this fandom, is that things won't make sense, and eventually, hopefully, they might. Like, it's just so funny that that's where we're at. Um, or like
okay
maybe
with that.
again, me too, programmed to be. That's just the fandom. And again, you are the ultimate fan for being like, hey, it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out maybe. And if
Man,
we
I
don't, I'll
really-
still be angry about it.
I really don't hate The Force Awakens. That said, I am going to talk about another thing that I didn't have on the list, but it's also one of my other least favorite things from The Force Awakens. And it is when they are on Starkiller Base and they're looking for Rey and they don't know where she is, and then they see her in the background, and Han kind of like subtly nods at her when Finn is talking, and then he's like, "What is this? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing that for? What is this?" I'm like, that is such a stupid joke. Like, it is such a
That is the
of
worst,
the
yeah.
time, like a bad Marvel movie joke that I
It is.
cringe every time I hear it. But I'll throw that one on the list too. Them randomly coming across Rey in that manner when they were looking for her.
Yeah, I hate that. I know we sympathize with each other with that moment, because that is up there with. I know you guys don't think they say squad goals. I am 99% sure they say squad goals in Rise of Skywalker. And those, no matter what they say, those are my least two favorite moments beyond Luke throwing the lightsaber behind him. And that's how
It's not
it's
a
just the
you can
worst.
think this or not type thing though. They have subtitles.
Read
I
the
don't think-
script.
this. I'm telling you, they say squad goals because I guarantee they were like, we need to make this
Not
available
squad.
to
You just think they
everybody.
say goals. You think they say goals. They
Goals,
say
goals.
ghouls.
Sorry. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. The ghouls.
No, it doesn't.
It's-
It's not like a better line or anything.
Little
That's just
green
what it
ghouls.
is. Maybe
Yeah,
little
I'm-
tiny ghouls. No,
They're
I think
retconning
maybe
a bad line and subtitles.
that
I'm gonna
might be,
find.
but
I'm gonna get the
canonically, that still
DVD
means that
version.
The line was ghouls.
I don't think it
Back
does.
to that Finn and Han scene. I like that scene. I didn't know that was maligned for being a cringy, unfunny comedic beat. I like that one.
Well,
It's
our
Between Max and I, at least, it's not good.
this May maybe we'll
Even-
do a 10-year review of The Force Awakens and we can talk about it at length.
Oh, we should absolutely. Hey, Force Awakens month. Let's try that again.
Maybe we can save it for December for the 10-year anniversary.
That makes more
Or
sense. Yeah.
December. Yeah, that makes more sense. I
Yeah.
said May out of
Yeah,
yeah.
Let's do that.
Sorry,
Sorry, you were thinking of Visions.
Visions 3 coming coming to you May 4th.
that has not been confirmed, has it?
It's
It was?
confirmed.
Maybe not
men-
May 4th, but Visions 3 is coming this year. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
mentally,
so
it's
annoying.
it's
I
for.
don't care about visions. Whatever.
That's
fine.
I agree.
You're not the only Star Wars fan
I know,
out there, Max.
I know. Someone else likes it.
But he's the only important one to me.
Thank you, Matthew. I agree. 14. Okay, so now we're moving on to The Last Jedi. This is Rey catching Kylo without his shirt on. Luke, I believe you added this one. I'll let you take it.
I'd feel like the luckiest girl in the world. What else is there to say? That's some good luck.
What do you think he was
not,
doing
You're not quite a-
before?
he was getting dressed because you're not quite a pervert catching him without his pants on, but a second earlier you're a pervert and a second later you're just talking to Kylo Ren again, but you got him just at the right time.
I would rather see him put his pants on though, not for the obvious reasons, but I'd be interested if he puts his socks on first or his pants on first. I don't want to see hog necessarily or hole. I don't want to see either of the H's. I'd just be interested if he's putting his socks on before his pants or his pants before then his socks. Which one do you guys do?
Pants then socks.
I do socks then pants.
I do socks and pants. I do underwear,
Yeah.
socks,
Oh,
pants.
fuck me. All right, I'll
Yeah,
change.
how do you? Cause tall socks is just it's hard to get up. You know.
Well, it's also kind of unlucky for Kylo Ren because we saw in the Acolyte that if she did see some hog and hole, that she would be seduced to the dark side. That's how it works.
The dark side hog and hole. that's oh man. That's good. That sounds like a great like cantina restaurant thing or something.
I was
Dark
just
side
about to
hog
say
and
that
hole.
sounds like a British pub.
Dark side's hog and hole. Oh man, I'm gonna write something with that.
I added this one as you were talking earlier, Luke, but I did want to circle back around to it. Leia's lifeboat not getting blown up when they were fleeing to Crate, as those other escape crafts. They weren't escape crafts. I don't know what they call them. I just called it a lifeboat. They were just being blown up
Transports.
indiscriminately.
Yeah, you're on the main character one. Same thing with the Lat gunships in the Battle of Geonosis. We talked about that recently. You want some main characters on your boat. That's another movie thing where movie's gonna movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Geonosis is a good example of that. We did talk about that recently. Okay. All right. That's I mean, it's still lucky, but whatever. And then 15, this is a good one because I feel like this is probably objectively the luckiest moment in all of Star Wars, and it is the Holdo maneuver. Because they did canonically address that later, too, in The Rise of Skywalker, when they were like, that's a 1 in a million shot. And it is a 1 in a million shot. I've heard people break it down with science that doesn't matter. Don't get it at me about the real science, okay? This is Star Wars. But a lot of very specific circumstances need to line up just right in order for that to be nearly as effective as it was.
I agree that that's the luckiest moment in Star Wars. Han bumping into Boba and sending him into the Sarlacc pit is like a 1 in 850,000 chance, I'd say. Not quite here.
Well, and the thing, yeah, I mean, this set back the First Order quite a bit and gave them opportunity to get in Crate and kind of get their footing a little bit, which allowed Luke to come in at the last second to buy them even more time. It had a lot more impact rather than just Boba Fett. I mean, what would have happened? He was going to fly over to Luke and they were going to fight and Luke would have killed him in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a couple that I'm just like, that's not, there's not a whole lot of upside. A previous one that I did not include on this list very purposefully because I don't think it was lucky at all was the Millennium Falcon being found at Unkar Plutt's junkyard. I'll pause for dramatic effect if you think that was lucky or not. The reason I don't think that was lucky is because it could have been any ship. The fact that it was the Millennium Falcon, if anything, made things worse. Because that was the reason that it eventually got found by Han, why he sucked it in, and then why he took them to Maz Kanata, and then they were there, and then the First Order came there because there was informants there. I mean, if they had just gotten on a different ship, they were going to the Ilenium system one way or another. I mean, Han Solo might have survived the whole thing if they didn't get on the Millennium Falcon.
Interesting.
Were they? Yeah, they were going to the Ilenium system. Yeah, okay, I'm on board. If it wasn't the Millennium Falcon, the trilogy still would have happened more or less. They would have gotten to the Resistance and joined up with Leia and probably met Han some other way. But even if they didn't, that's not that impactful, I guess.
It's certainly made for, a more compelling story, obviously.
Yeah.
But from a plot perspective, because I'm always thinking about like the Indiana Jones effect, when people are like, oh, Indiana Jones actually played no impact at all to the plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, like everything would have still played out exactly as it did. And this is one of them. Like, if anything,
Return of the Jedi.
I disagree
How
with
so
the Indiana
Return of the
Jones
Jedi?
thing, though.
Luke Skywalker, Vader and Palpatine both would have died on the Death Star if he stayed home.
No, because if Luke wasn't there, Darth Vader was on Endor, or he would have joined the space battle. That's
Yeah, I
ridiculous.
agree with that.
That is not the
Okay,
same as
alright.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, the Raiders of the Lost Ark one is insane too, because the pressure that Indiana Jones is after the Ark is what sets everything in motion.
But isn't the only reason they find the Ark because Indiana Jones is there?
No, I mean, yeah, he.
Or do
Yes,
they,
but
do
I
the
mean, that's the
Nazis
thing,
find
too.
it independent of Indiana Jones? And if the Nazis found it independent of Indiana Jones, they still opened it and everyone died except for Indiana Jones because he knew not to look at it.
Well, he's the one in the pit that finds where the Ark is at, so he does the work. But the whole point is that he's after them, and he's got the piece of the puzzle, which is Marion. It doesn't matter. We have to do an Indiana Jones podcast, not podcast, but episode.
I don't have a
I've
whole
been
lot
meaning
of
to
thoughts
watch
on
it.
it. This is just like a common internet thing. Like people point out.
I've seen it.
Yeah, there's like
It's an episode of The Big
lists.
Bang Theory.
Yeah, there's lists on the internet of like movies where like the main characters really somehow played no impact to the plot of the film or whatever, and this is like famously one of them.
I'm gonna look into this, but I feel like the pressure alone. I think the internet's fucking stupid.
You never
Anyway,
heard
here
that,
I
Matt?
am-
I'm surprised. I'm surprised
Here
you've
am I
never heard that.
contributing. I have not. Here am I contributing to the noise.
Well, I'm not going to defend the internet, so I guess you can think.
All
Whatever.
right. Yeah. Max? Who do you want? The internet or your best friend?
That was it for all the moments that I have. I'm scanning over my list, making sure I didn't miss any. Do you guys have any? Oh, no, Matthew, you added this one at the last second for Return of the Jedi. R2 knowing
yeah.
exactly what Luke was going to do, / thank God he had his lightsaber locked and loaded. That's not luck
Yeah.
at all. That was all pre-planned.
Yeah, that
To-
was,
to
that
a-
was scripted.
A comical degree, mind you. Like, yes, they scripted it to be very theatrical, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it wasn't luck that R2 threw him the lightsaber at the right moment.
Okay. Here's, I guess, a little bit of luck is the fact that the walking plank, like the ship, is springy. It wasn't. What if it was just a piece of wood? He wouldn't have been able to thrust himself up. He didn't trust
he's
it
just-
before.
He wouldn't do the same thing. He's just making the best of his situation. If it wasn't springy, he would have just done a backflip straight off of it.
The real luck in that scene is when R2 is serving drinks on that little platter right on top of his dome. I mean, had he not been paying attention for 2 seconds and he just hears Luke starting to monologue and he still has that thing on, and he's like, oh, fuck, I gotta drop this thing and get to the top.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
I've had that
Luke-
thought before.
Luke's just vamping on the diving board, looking around. Where are you, buddy?
Saluting every window.
Anyway, any other moments that you guys can think of?
No, I'm disappointed in myself for not dedicating more time to thinking of more lucky moments because I'm sure I'm going to come up with a lot more. But I'll save them for forces for thought in the future.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the good news is St. Patrick's Day comes around once every year, so we might be doing this episode again. We'll see.
And it's always St. Patrick's Day in our hearts because we bleed green.
Aye, laddie.
Exactly. Just like Liam Neeson, Ray Stevenson, and Domhnall Gleeson, all famous Star Wars actors.
Oh,
who
I did
were
not know
Irish.
that Domhnall or Ray Stevenson were Irish.
Yes, because Domhnall Gleeson, his dad, oh my god, I can't think of his name. Brendan Gleeson, very famous actor, in a million things. 28 weeks later, the fucking New York movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, that bullshit movie.
Wolf of Wall Street.
No, sorry, Gangs of New York.
Oh,
Very much not Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street does take place in New York with Leonardo DiCaprio, though.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, he's a very Irish actor. Anyway.
Does anyone have any force for thought?
Oh shit, yeah, I do. I do, yes. Which I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but again, I've been much like Luke Taylor, going through increments of every Star Wars movie, but specifically going back to Empire Strikes Back. And so when Luke gets captured on Hoth in the beginning, he's upside down, right? Very famous scene, very spooky. When he grabs his lightsaber, also a lucky moment, I would say, because he does it in the nick of time. I know that's like skill and stuff too. That's pretty lucky. I don't mean like it's luck that happens. It's just very lucky that it's that close in time. When he cuts himself down, what exactly does he cut? Because this is confusing. Because every action figure that you see of him, and from my headcanon, I think because I had the action figure, is that both of his feet are stuck in ice. Right? And so you would assume the way he cuts something, it would be a rope. What does he cut though? Because he cuts it like a rope and instantly falls. But from everything we know visually, his feet are stuck in ice, which also opens up a whole bag of questions of what exactly and how exactly does he get his legs and feet stuck in the ice upside down like that
The Wampa's
melts
just
that,
holding him there for hours.
Exactly. Like it's like he's an ice tray. So like that opens up a whole lot of questions. But when he cuts it down himself, it is very confusing because everything visually we have seen, both of his feet are stuck in ice.
So
that
here's
is
a
my thought.
question. How much heat
Yes.
do you think a lightsaber gives off?
I'd say a lot, but I
Lots.
think in one stroke, I could see Luke cutting the chunk of ice away from the separate. Because so let's compare this to Batman and Robin when Mr. Freeze freezes Robin. And Batman has to put him in the hot water in order to thaw him out. And it takes quite a while.
I'm there. Yeah.
It's this. I'd say it's the same exact situation, basically. Luke, if he
So you
cut
think
him,
he melts the ice.
if he with his saber, I'd say it's that hot that he could do it instantly. With that being said, in one stroke, I could
That's
see
what I was
him
thinking.
cutting a chunk of ice out of the other ice, so he would fall. His legs would still be in there because that'd be a very dangerous
He'd be
move.
hopping around in a mini ice cube.
Yes, because it'd be very dangerous to be able to cut each of your feet out of the ice. I feel like that's insane to be able to cut. I don't think in one stroke. I don't think you can cut your feet out of that. Let alone, I mean, think about that. Literally, how would you even do that with a saber? Cut both of your feet out of the ice in one stroke.
Yeah, the only way I'm thinking about how you could do it is if you cut like the ice further up higher and just like cut the ice around your feet away from the ice around the rest of the ice, but then you'd still have ice blocks on your legs.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's no good.
So it had to have been
So
some sort of
yeah.
primitive pulley system that the Wampa used. Or maybe he just had like a
You would
hook or
assume,
something.
but
and then
everything
maybe it just
visually
kind
we've
of
seen.
froze over a little bit. But maybe it wasn't the ice that was holding him up there. Maybe it was something else.
Again, all the action figures, the hot toys, nothing has the explanation we see besides ice.
I wonder if there's any
There's some-
behind the scenes footage of that scene. How they
I know
hung him up.
because I think
I just pulled
I
up
always,
the scene. You can see his ice are frozen in the ceiling, and there's also those straps, but the straps are not tight; they're loose. Like that's not what's holding him up, and it's not like what was ever holding him up. Are
I
they
think
just
those are
part
just
of
part of
his
his boot.
boots?
Yeah, I think so. That's how I always
Okay.
did that.
extra
Okay,
fabric.
so then he's just in the ice. But I don't see how that works either.
Unless the
How-
ice is
how does-
covering something. Like
But his
if he
feet like
cuts-
aren't hooked around on something. Like it would have to be his feet are attached to something, like a magnet, and he has metal boots.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've had this question before, watching this movie, and I have no good answer for you, Matt. I don't know how he got attached to the ceiling. I don't know how the lightsaber detaches him from the ceiling.
Do you think there's any
If that were me,
sort
I would
of,
panic and slice both my feet in half.
again, it would probably carterize itself, you know? Maybe Luke has 2 robotic feet we never see. We never see those tootsies.
That's why he was such a bitch out in the snowstorm right after. He had only
Yeah.
half feet.
There was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, that was my force for thought, folks.
Well, Matt, if you remember it, you can email it to us along with all of our fans. If you think of anything, feel free to email it to us or reach out to us across social medias at Force for Thought.
Yeah, behind the scenes of this pod, we don't talk. We only talk here. We're like an 80s band we're like Motley Crue who go back on tour, but we don't talk to each other. We take separate tour buses. We don't
We
talk.
email
we don't
from our
text.
personal emails to our work email.
Yeah, my person goes through their people.
When you
Anyway.
text me, I just say, I'll have my people get with your people.
Exactly. Anyway, see you, Sammy.